Economists, like psychologists, as is known, can be anyone at all. Even Trump. However, unlike the millions who can only talk about money, Donald can afford to burn dollars. And while everyone else just pontificates about the economy, Trump can simply cut off its head and play golf with a gay person. Well, that's what you call a handsome man. And that's why it spreads across the entire planet. The Economist's Sabbath, and millions of all these experts and counters of other people's rubles and dollars have raised a wild uproar. Everyone is pontificating, everyone is scandalizing, everyone is babbling, everyone is predicting. No one can say anything coherent. Well, by the way, even the masterminds behind Trump's reform can't say anything coherent. The billions amassed in the personal fortunes of these masterminds. This is not a guarantee of the rationality of the new tariffs. All economic successes, after all, consist of 70% pure luck, and for billionaires too. And the outcome of this whole tariff drama can be either wonderful or nightmarish. It's what you might call a matter of luck. Crazy schemes often turned out to be magnificent and miraculous, while seemingly flawless plans ended up being complete failures, ended in disaster. The fact is that economics is not a science and does not allow for the prediction of consequences, as precisely as, for example, is possible in chemistry or high-energy physics. But you can't argue with that no matter what. However, we know that economics is the best at awakening volcanoes of disasters. However, it's unclear how it does this. In general, if there were real, clear laws of economics and they worked, the world would be populated only by billionaires. There is another danger. Before Trump, the world was crippled, flawed, fragile, and wobbly. It had a multitude of shortcomings, but nevertheless, it stood. It stood, and that was the maximum that could be demanded of it. What will happen to this structure as a result of Trump's efforts is unclear to anyone. And indeed, unfortunately, the economy is not a science. Moreover, any economy is constantly subject to new external circumstances, which themselves are unpredictable. Those very circumstances that another non-science, namely history, is unable to predict accurately. And the interpretation of how such a thing could happen, and to what extent, and how the face of humanity could be distorted, is dealt with by the third non-science, namely psychology. And united, all these three graces of absurdity form a delightful sculptural group, at the sight of which even Dracula would have a heart attack, if before Trump's tariff reform, the world was irrational, unjust, somewhat foolish, not always beneficial to everyone. Nevertheless, it was balanced, it held together, and no one demanded more from it or expected more, because the desire for more usually leads to cataclysms and changes of eras. That is, to those times when life completely loses any comfort. And will the world that tries to hastily cobble together with the dollar club of tariffs withstand Trump? Nobody knows. Trump strikes so selflessly, so ecstatically, so blindly, and no one understands the consequences, including himself. Indeed, the structure that can be created paradoxically, it can be magnificent, but it can also be deadly. And no one, especially its authors, is able to clearly explain the meaning. Note that not a single simple explanation of the advantages, including for America, has followed. And as Aristotle wonderfully said, to know is to be able to explain even to a child. If you are unable to interpret and explain something in extremely simple words, it means you do not know it. Ursula von der Leyen, she, like everyone else, believes that the tariffs introduced by Trump will deal a monstrous blow to the global economy. There are many such statements. Well, I won't quote them. There are too many. Optimism is not observed yet. There is a lot of pessimism. But even pessimists are not based on knowledge, but on their guesses. And gloomy forecasts are worth exactly as much as the rosy forecasts. But by the way, rosy forecasts I have not seen. Well, except for Trump's own assurances, who is confident that America will now flourish. Well, I would refrain from using the word flourish because it's a dangerous word. Flowers, after all, come in different kinds. Rafflesia, Amorphophallus are also flowers and they bloom. But these are the flowers that emit a terrible stench of rotten meat. And why do I say that the experience of successful businessmen, billionaires, who concocted this tariff story and persuaded Trump to implement it isn't worth even half a euro cent? Precisely because I know very well this crowd. I personally observed their rises, the billionaires, and their self-destruction, drunken tears, their triumphs, their shames, their humiliations. And I can tell you that, for example, in the history of Russian billionaire oligarchs, it was never 70% luck, but 99% of it. And most often it was simply the ability to be in the right place at the right time and a talent for flattery. It's clear that almost all current Russian oligarchs could very well be riding around in a beret with a worm on an electric scooter or a Chinese mortgage car, rolling somewhere over Nizhupinsk, if they hadn't been at the right Kremlin door at the right moment. I know this topic well, and to assume that oligarchs, billionaires, are people with a special economic mindset or brilliant intellectuals. Oh, come on, really, come on. That's a grand misconception. Perhaps among American tycoons, things are slightly better. But even in the case of American oligarchs, understand that luck determines everything.